Hello, so I'm here with Matt Shouler.
Correct. Yes.
This is a very exciting name. Where's it from?
It's from Yorkshire.
Is it really? So
Yes, it
are you
derives.
originally from Yorkshire?
Well, my family is. The name derives from a Yorkshire version of the word shoveler.
How
But
brilliant.
my family has lived in the constituency that I'm contesting for 6 generations.
And the constituent, so that's just below Yorkshire, isn't it? You're in Melton and
It's Melton and Syston. It's a
Melton.
new constituency formed from what was Melton and Rutland,
Yes.
and part of what used to be Charnwood. So
So
my conservative
I know the
vote,
area quite well. Um,
yes, it
so
includes your alma mater.
I was a child down there. Suddenly, I sound like Scrooge. But yeah, it's lovely, and it's a lot. So where is which part are you actually based in?
I'm in the Vale of Belvoir, which is a flat rural valley of
Yeah,
beautiful villages along the Leicestershire Nottinghamshire border, running up towards Lincolnshire.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, well, as a very small child, I was brought up in Lincolnshire, so it's even flatter there in Scotland.
Yes,
So, there's so you're one of 26 candidates being put forward by Rejoin EU.
correct.
Are you going to win?
Uh, Clearly, overall, even if all 26 of us were elected, we could not form a government. But that's not really the intention.
What
The
is the intent?
intention is The
Yes.
intention is to highlight the fact that 65% of British adults, rising to 79% of British people under 25, think that Brexit was a huge mistake and want it reversed. And yet, no major credible party is talking about it. And by having it on the ballot and by having us in hustings, we kind of make them talk about it. So we are the visual representation of the elephant in the room, in the political room, that is Brexit.
Hmm. Well, not only are people not talking about Brexit, I mean, they're deliberately not talking about Brexit. They're blaming everything on COVID or on Mr. Putin. I mean, I'm very happy to see things blamed on Mr. Putin, but the Brexit is simply not being mentioned, and Brexit
No,
to be
it's very
responsible
odd.
for so much. Um,
And yet it is the one that we could so easily fix. We can't go back in time and manage the COVID pandemic better, though some voters probably do want to punish the party that managed it so badly. And we can't on our own deal with Putin, but we could deal with Brexit. We're the only country ever to impose economic sanctions on ourselves. And the sort of thing that we did to ourselves is what collectively our European partners are doing to Putin in terms of making it harder for him to trade with Europe. We did that to ourselves. It was crazy.
so you've had a very interesting career
I
in the
have.
first in the Navy. How long were you in the Navy?
Well, I was in the proper Navy for 3 years, and then I joined the Royal Naval Reserve
Right.
on being recruited by the civil service, and I served in the diplomatic service and briefly in the cabinet office and the Department for Energy and Climate Change when we had one under Ed Miliband. So I've lived in several different countries, and I've seen the inside of the buildings in Brussels, and I understand, I think, fairly well how the EU works and worked, and I voted Remain all along. But
Yes. Well, me too.
having left government service, I'm now allowed to speak my mind and speak my truth, and I've found a party that is prepared to do so as well.
Well, it's very good, very good. What can we? So you yeah. What about small boats? Is there really a migration problem, or is it an illusion, or can we fix it if there is a problem?
It So small boats make up a tiny, tiny proportion of migration. They make up a fairly small proportion of illegal migration, but illegal migration or unmanaged migration makes up a tiny proportion of overall migration. Small boats were not an issue when we were part of EU mechanisms, particularly the Dublin III agreement, because we shared the handling of asylum applications with our European neighbours. So, unless somebody had close family ties in the UK, in which case there was a route open to them, they should be processed by the first safe European country they got to. So there was no need for anyone to get into a small boat, and no opportunity for the criminal gangs to exploit these people by getting them in a small boat to get to the UK. It was only because of Theresa May's unnecessarily hard Brexit that we left the Dublin III agreement, because there's plenty of other countries that are in the Dublin III agreement, like Norway and Iceland, which are not in the EU. So we could have stayed in that. Nobody voted to leave it. The government chose to leave it anyway. And it's created the problem of small boats.
Yes. I'm interested that you modified the term illegal to manageable, or unmanaged.
Managed, yes. Managed
Because
or unmanaged migration.
because however somebody gets to a country, even if it's on through an illegal route, once they claim asylum, they are effectively legalized until they're
They have legalized status, yes, as do their
under the
family.
1951 Refugee Convention.
Yes. The trouble that we have in this country is that the government has closed down all the legal routes. So people who could be here legally can't get here legally. So they're being exploited. And
Yes.
I mean, I think it's emblematic of the sort of xenophobic mismanagement of our national security, on our national economy. But they are, even if everybody on every small boat were granted asylum, and the majority of them are, because they are deserving cases once they're properly assessed. Even if they were all granted asylum, it wouldn't make a huge difference to the overall number of people entering the country, because the vast majority of people come here to do things like study master's degrees and work in the NHS, and they have visas and it's regularized.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you were in power, would you repeal the 3 laws of Suella Braverman? The nationality and borders law, the illegal migration law, and the Rwanda law. I'm attributing the last one to her, though she wasn't directly involved.
Yes, she wasn't, and it seems unlikely that the very last of that series of laws will ever be passed into statute, because the Conservatives didn't prioritise it when they called the election. Yes, we would repeal them on the grounds that they are inhumane, but moreover on the grounds that they are completely uneconomical. It costs a 6 or 7 figure sum to remove one migrant from the UK to Rwanda. It would be far more effective to spend a fraction of that amount creating the legal routes which would deter them from ever having gotten on a small boat in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But actually,
that's taxpayers' money that ought to be spent on their GP and their child's school and their dentist and things, and instead it's being wasted.
Yes, and wasted paying for people in hotels.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing you mentioned was the Dublin III.
Yes.
About people claiming asylum in the first country that they get to when they come to Europe. But this puts enormous pressure on countries in the southern part of the Mediterranean, like Greece and Turkey. And Greece's ability to deal with migration has been very poor for the last 20 years, despite the fact that they take such a significant role in Frontex. Migration is something that needs to be dealt with on a European basis thoroughly, and here in the UK as well. So
yes, and dealing with it in the UK ought to be dealt with as part of dealing with it in Europe as a whole, because migrants from the Middle East can't get to the UK without going through Europe. So it's we have common interest in solving this problem together, but we chose to leave all the mechanisms which enabled us to do so. And I think that was unwise, and I think our partners in Europe regret it.
Yes.
But on a practical level.
Do you think our partners in Europe would accept us back?
Well, von der Leyen has said that she would accept us back. I mean, I understand that they're probably waiting for a sensible grown-up that they can negotiate with, because they didn't have that last time. And they don't. The last thing they want to do is enter a politicized series of negotiations which are conducted for the benefit of a small domestic audience of conservative voters. They want people who are going to conduct a negotiation on a pragmatic, evidence-based cost-benefit analysis, and it doesn't appear that the Labour Party is prepared to stand up and perform that service to the country. Oddly,
Yet.
yet.
Yes. So this isn't going to be a quick fix in any way.
No. This the whole existence of our party is not a quick fix. We're not aiming to flick a switch and go back to where we were in 2016. We're aiming to get people to have the conversation this time round, and then maybe at the next election it'll be a mainstream part of the conversation. I mean, I said demographics, older Brexiters dying and younger Remainers being born or coming of voting age will deal with a lot of it. But also, I think a more honest government will show people that actually they can't fix the problems in the NHS without reverting to some of the
Yes.
EU versions of migration that we had. They can't fix the cost of living without bringing down the cost of importing and exporting, those sanctions that we impose on ourselves. People at the moment are not being told the truth by politicians that the other problems in their lives, the more important, more pressing problems, are actually consequences of, or at least worsened by, Brexit. I think that when the Labour Party wins its landslide, it will have the political clout to be honest with people. And once the government has been honest with people for a number of years, the people will feel emboldened to ask for the solution that the Labour Party knows full well the solution is to rejoin. They're just not prepared to say it publicly. And so I suspect that in 2 or 3 elections' time, we will be asking the EU formally to be let back in and invoking Article 49 rather than Article 50. It's just a shame that we're dragging our heels, because the only people that suffer while this drags on is us. And every day that we're out of the EU, there's an opportunity cost and money wasted on things like border inspections, which is passed on to the consumer, money not collected in tax revenue, which is passed on to the service user. The voters are much worse off as a result of Brexit, and the majority of them know it.
Yes, I think it's not only the voters and us who are worse off after Brexit. I think if we had not had Brexit, I think it would have made it much harder for Putin to have invaded Ukraine.
It would have made that much harder politically. It would have made it much harder politically for the Chinese Communist Party to crack down on dissidents in Hong Kong if the attention of the British Parliament and our EU partners were more focused on the 50-year law that we put in place. But they were distracted, and Putin and the Chinese Communist Party took advantage of that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, look, I think we've finished on a very good point, so we should probably leave it there. But I hope all goes well on July the 4th, and I should be thinking of you. I should be thinking of you up in Melton and that wonderful area all the way through Rutland. So are you?
So Rutland and Stamford and Oakham and Uppingham in Rutland have been put together as a new constituency.
Oh, that's the new one. So you've got the bit.
I've got the bit that's left at the top. Melton, Syston, and the Vale of Belvoir, which is an equally lovely part of the world.
It's absolutely beautiful. You're so lucky. Well, I wish you well. Thank you.
Professor.
Right.
Bye for now.